Being 8:30 and was having a forum, call this meeting to order. The first order minutes, approve the minutes from the April 18th board meeting. Have a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the April 18th board meeting.
Motion.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor of approving the minutes, by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, the same? All right, going to the financial update with Ms. Bartlett.
Y'all have the statement in front of you. I guess I'll just ask for any questions. There's nothing out of whack. The only things that are a little bit over our 7/12 of the year budget are the things that generate income. So I guess that's a good thing. The merchandise sales and our restaurant trailer income, things like that.
You want to tell them about that adjustment we're going to have?
Yeah, and I don't know if it's appropriate to do it now or if we should just wait till the new budget comes out. But Sherry and I met with Pam Curbo and Eddie Mahaffey about the restroom trailer. And I inherited this budget with the restroom trailer showing as an income and an expense. And that's the only way I've ever handled it, because that's the way the budget was handed to me. And we really should be putting the restroom trailer income into a fund that accumulates money and use it to pay the restroom trailer expenses. That's the proper way to treat an asset. And I totally agree with Pam that that's what we should be doing. And it requires a budget change to do that, because we have an income and an expense account on our budget. Basically, we'll just, I guess, take those out.
And that was the intention all along, and somewhere in the past, we can't backtrack it, it just kind of ran off the rails. So we did incur some expense.
The
generator was totaled, and usually that shouldn't be any problem because we would have had that reserve fund specifically set aside to handle maintenance. But as we are doing it now, we're collecting money and then spending it in inappropriate ways because it's not earmarked specifically for that. So it's something we need to fix sooner rather than later, in my opinion.
And really, we're accumulating income, and at the end of the year, income and expenses go away. So if we just say, for example, we accumulated $2,000 this year in the budget, it goes away. So if next year we incurred a $1,500 expense, theoretically that $2,000 should be available for that. It should not be part of our income to be spent on other things. It should be just
Let me ask a question. We show income of $400 for bricks, and graded expenses $440. Am I misreading that?
No, but those don't always correlate exactly with.
Might have sold that brick in the last statement and are just now paying for the installation.
And if the bricks were put on the credit card, I don't get the statement till after the end of the month kind of thing, so it may be. Actually, I think what happened is at the beginning of the fiscal year, we had some engraving installation expenses that the money had already been received in the previous year, so sometimes that gets behind.
And we might need to look into raising our sale price for bricks as the installation and engraving cost increase.
Any other questions on the budget expenses for anyone? Move into board committee roundtable. I have just a bit of news. I sent a couple of my folks to Dallas to bid the 2020 North and East Texas Commissioners and County Judges Association, and that is something that we're going to have to, as a community, help house, because it's too big for even the Fredonia. So, and I've got the unofficial word that will be happening, and I haven't got the official, but it should be coming soon. So that was a great piece of news, and that's my my people working together with the CVB and bringing something. Joanna has certainly been very helpful and going to help us find places for them to have their vendors overflow for hotels and everything. So real excited about that. They want it to be here, so we're going to make it work.
It was here at one time.
It was.
Best I remember, those were big vendors too.
They are. And we have something else for them,
Judges.
and they want it because they were here on that site visit.
Right, exactly. And so it's fruit of the labor. We've been planting seeds, and this is the fruit of those labors. So it's happening. So it's good.
What was the date on that?
It's 2020. I think it's this time frame. It's actually they do it the Monday after Mother's Day.
How many people is it?
Oh, it's
It's
600.
yeah. It's
It's a huge one. With the vendors.
yes.
It's between 4 and 600.
They need 15,000 square feet of space just for their vendors.
It's May 11th.
Dinners and lunches.
Yeah, May 11th through May 14th.
Yeah.
20 times.
That's going to be that's a great win for our community. So look forward to seeing more of those seeds sprout in the future.
And I think it's a great opportunity to look at, since coming on board here, we really have to look at how the CVB services the Fredonia, who has their own sales staff, who has their own convention space. So we service them differently, and I think this is a great example of how we can step in and help sort of shore up and still provide quality services to them as one of our properties, but do it in a really specific and meaningful way that supplements and complements the services that they already have in place.
Definitely. It's definitely a group effort, and I think more the properties in Nacogdoches need to take advantage of is the partnership, and I think that they are. So, and this is something that will be fruitful for a lot of hotels in the community. So that was great. Anybody have anything else they'd like to share or say something? All right, we'll go into their discussion items. Ad-driven collateral.
On all of these, except for the fifth one, what has happened is word has gotten out among vendors that there's a new executive director, so I get the sales calls. And you and I have never had that define the relationship, talk about what direction, what's a deal killer, what is something we absolutely don't want to do as a group. What are some areas that we'd like to move forward to? So I don't expect any decisions to be made. There's not going to be any need to, move to vote on any of these items. I just need a clear direction of, yes, we would be in favor of something like this, explore it more, or no, that's not something that we're willing to do. So with that being said, I can sort of dive right in. We were approached by a group called Lunar Printing, and what they'll do is they'll come in and they'll design your brochures for you, and then they'll also sell ad space to your local businesses. And so what that does is it sort of can counteract the cost of your printing and your collateral. But the trade-off of that is then you have an ad-driven piece of the collateral. And that really is a judgment call for a CVB or a board. I think there's probably some subliminal messaging that goes on of the validity of recommendations when you're looking at something that has sold ad space in it versus something that is all-inclusive that we have now. It's sort of nonpartisan. So that's, it would allow us to, Stephanie's not here, so I wasn't able to really get the breakdown of what we spend. We don't really print a lot of brochures. It seems like we do, but we're not doing it in a big enough bulk, I think, to get a lower price point, and B, to send cases of our brochures to the different travel information centers or to different destinations. We're not really proactive yet in pushing our information. We kind of just sit back and wait for people to ask for it. And for me, I'd like to see us have the stock on hand to be able to push it out and not be in a position of just reacting to requests, but really being proactive and putting it in front of them. So with an ad-driven, we would see more benefits cost-wise of that, because that definitely is a volume-driven pricing decision. I mean, we could still absolutely do it and not sell ads, but that's a discussion that I wanted the board to have of how you feel about selling ad space. Is that fair to our local small businesses? Do they have that in their budget? This would be kind of a game changer. From them, we're able to represent some people and businesses that don't have a big budget for things like that.
Well, then we give up control of the content as well?
We would still supply the content, and you can negotiate the design of it. You know, we could show them that this is how we wanted it designed. With this particular company, which I would not recommend after doing some due diligence and researching other destinations that have used this particular company, I wouldn't recommend going with them, but there are some other larger destinations that do this using some other companies, and it does involve a digital component as well as the print component, so you get some added value to it. But these are also destinations that have a Six Flags over Texas. They've got these businesses that aren't so small business oriented, but there's some larger places that have more of a budget to buy ads and publications like that.
Sure, what is the downside of doing this? I'm not an ad person, so.
There's nothing wrong with ads. Ads make the world go around, but when you're looking at, as a CVB, we're supposed to represent all of our properties that pay hotel occupancy tax equally, and not one more so than other. And when we make recommendations to the public, we are going to represent everybody equally as well. And some places just have more money to buy a bigger ad. And so it's, when you open up a brochure of recommendations and you see Twigs and Tins has a full sheet a full panel in your brochure, obviously that's going to have more of an impact than Glass Castles or Heart of Texas that has a smaller one. So that's in selling that ad space, are we really catering to everybody as a whole would be the only, and there's nothing right and wrong, it's just a direction that we want.
The chamber does that. The chamber directory is very similar to that. And when I get the chamber directory, so I have an ad in there. When I get the chamber directory, I know exactly what it is. It's an advertising magazine with some content added to it, and it's done by Point A Media, who I believe does the advertising for the chamber also, or is that a separate arrangement?
They produce our mapping directory.
They produce the mapping directory. So
And they host the website.
I think that if you do one of those, I don't think it will necessarily confuse people, but what we're deciding is, do we want a big advertising content? Basically what we would be doing would be giving people an opportunity to advertise in a central location by a document that would be available at the CVB. And I don't think it would necessarily mean that I think people will know that Twigs and Tin paid to have that full page ad, and that the other Heart of Texas paid for a smaller ad, because people are familiar, people are savvy to what they're looking at, whether they're looking at a real magazine. And I go to the car wash, I know the difference between a real magazine and an advertising magazine when I see them sit there on the table. And I would say that we would want to, if we want to do this, we might want to consider talking to our advertising agency that we're working with and get their advice, because their messaging, because there is subtle messaging in these things. And I've seen ones that are done like by Point A for the chamber, and it's clearly done by people who live in Nacogdoches and know Nacogdoches. Mm-hmm. And then, but I have seen some that are, they may have all of the businesses in that town advertised, but you can tell that the content is very generic content, and that it'd be the same content they would have written if they were doing it for Lufkin or Center or Marshall or anything. It's deep in the Piney Woods, and it uses kind of that very broad language, and they just pop that in, put the ad in, collect the money, distribute them, make their money, and go on to the next town. So I would say that if we did it, I would want at least it not to be cheesy.
Mhm.
I want the content that we do have control over to be consistent with our messaging that we're getting from Hancock, we're putting out through Hancock Advertising, so that it doesn't look like, oh yeah, they just sold their advertising rights away to some schmucks in St. Louis that have never even been to Nacogdoches. But I think that people know what they are, so I don't think it's disingenuous on our part. It's a way to get a free booklet with a bunch of advertisements, and that we could give away if that's something we want to do. But I think we want to make sure that it's tasteful and appropriate to the rest of our messaging and logos and stuff like that.
And those are really good points. I don't question whether people would be confused over, a bigger ad versus a smaller ad. It's more so from our end, are we doing our best representation of our community by allowing that disparity to happen? Whereas what we're doing right now is everybody gets fair and equal treatment, and everybody is represented wholly. And then the other part of that, the argument could be made, and I'm not saying that this is necessarily how I feel, but we are fully funded through hotel occupancy tax, which our hotel and beds and breakfast inside the city are paying into. When we go through and have a third-party agency sell ads on top of that, are we then asking them to reinvest more money? Because we're supposed to be using that hot tax money in good faith to market them.
Do we
So
get
then
any
are we?
money on that first? Do we get any of the money from the advertising agency who puts it together? Or do they keep it all, or do they give us like 10%?
It would go to different, it would offset the printing cost basically, so it would just be a wash.
So we wouldn't walk away with any cash from it?
Correct.
Okay.
I have two general statements. Going back to how you opened up the conversation, I feel like we as the board have approved the marketing plan, and then you and your staff can look at the ways to best meet those objectives. So that's where I like to start with things.
Okay.
And then I am completely shop Mac. I believe we should keep as much as we can local, as much as possible. Obviously, we can't live in our bubble, but unless there is a great need to go outside to other sources, I would please hope that you would look at our local providers for
100%
anything.
agree.
Yeah.
Well, I think you do both. We do what we do, but are we talking about like a Where magazine or Key magazine, or are y'all familiar with those? When you go to Denton or Dallas or Houston in hotel rooms, there's a Where is the name of the magazine, and it's all about what's going on. It's that destination, and we tried something similar years ago here in Nacogdoches, and it was done locally, I believe, and it didn't make. But is that what we're talking about, like a Key magazine, or is
These
it?
are our brochures, so it would be the visitor's guide with ad sales in the back, the dining guide with ad sales in the back.
Like we had with the newspaper, you remember when we had our,
Right.
that was pretty cool. It was like,
Yes, and that was it was a targeted a destination pamphlet, something that people could take, and had a map of Nacogdoches and the key of restaurants and historic sites and such. That sort of publication is I think good for a community, and we did do it locally through the newspaper. But I don't particularly like giving up content control or the control of our messaging and our branding to someone. I don't know.
question. Were you through? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'll just do it before I start this.
You said at the beginning, you said something about doing both. Well, when those brochures are printed, do they ship them to us for us to send them out? If we did this, first of all, I get calls like this all the time from somebody, working with Nacogdoches High School selling ads for a football calendar or something. Not my favorite calls in the world to get. But I think the brochures that we had planned to do, or whatever Hancock had in mind for us to do this year, I think we should continue to do those, and we should use those in-house. If we were to do this, I think it would be more of a reaching people we've not reached before. You said something at the beginning about being able to just send out, a box of brochures to some travel center type place. So if we can use these to reach our audiences that we haven't reached before, and we continue to have in-house brochures that market everybody equally, not based on how much money they can afford to spend, I think it might be even though business A couldn't spend quite as much as business B, it might be a rising tides lift all ships kind of scenario where we may get people in here who wouldn't have been here before if they hadn't seen a brochure in wherever you would choose to send them. But I would think that we wouldn't want to, release those or disseminate those so much in-house, but just in.
So sort of put those maybe out in our drive markets and outside of the region.
Yes.
Okay.
And if you chose to do that, I would like to see Stephanie and Hancock work with the company on the content so that we do maintain that quality. If the company, and I'm sure you'd choose a company that would be willing to do that. And then just also, because I think it seems to me like just from the few days I've worked on a Saturday, that, between our brochures and then we have SFA produced brochures for the gardens and for some different events, I think we're pretty much cut. It seems like we have enough stuff there to keep in out here, from a very limited perspective.
I don't know, but this type of publication to me is like for my vintage market days, because our audience is that out of the market, so they would buy an ad vintage market days. And I think any of the standing events we have, those organizations would buy that because it just shows what's going on in our town to draw them. Those are the kind of people I would be advertising.
Yeah, well, this would be a yearly publication, so the ads would be purchased yearly. So we would be counting on those groups that are committed, like the counties in 2020. Not that they would buy an ad, but or the Pulpwood Queens, and know that it would run. Specifically, the company that brought this topic up to discussion is looking at straight out replacing. So we wouldn't have two sets of collateral. We wouldn't have our visitor's guide and our dining guide that we had and something else. It would replace all of that. But I feel like with the discussion, I have a good idea of where you'd like to go and how I can better answer the questions that I'm fielding. I just had a meeting yesterday with Pam Kerbo with the city to get our progression of our projected budget amount to work with. So as we build out our next fiscal budget that I can present to you, we really need to look at how we're spending our money. So it serves two purposes.
I'm still a little confused. Our guys that we have upstairs for all hotels and things like that, are you saying that these people would produce that so we would no longer have to produce it?
Mm-hmm. They would produce it and print it, and they would, yes.
We're all, you talk about sending these out. Where do you send these to?
Right now, we only send them out to
And
people.
where could you send them?
We'll get a guaranteed audience that is coming through, and if they're coming through Texarkana, then it stands to reason that they could ostensibly plan a trip through here. And then you could also go outside of Texas into those markets that we know that we have people into. They are similar. I mean, they take a different form because they're government agencies, but they are a form of the travel information centers.
And I'd like to just reiterate kind of what I like what you said, and that I find those things that they're self-helpful. At the same time, I don't take them as seriously as I take, if I go to Houston and I look at one of my hotel, I'm gonna grab the Houston Press and Free Press Houston and stuff like that for kind of the authentic word on the street. But those things are helpful and they're fun to look at in a hotel. But I do like, as you're fielding calls, if we're gonna do it, I would like for us to, we know that Point A is able to produce a similar document for the chamber, and I'm sure that Hancock could produce a similar document as well. I'd like to, first, talk to our local people to see if they could do something similar. And second, make sure that we drive the content, the non-advertising content, and the branding. I don't want to just put it in somebody else's hands and we end up with this thing and it's generic.
I'd like to see an example.
Yeah.
Is there a website, maybe you send out to the board to see? It sounds like it would be like we're producing now, everyone would be included. And then you would have the opportunity to add ad space in the back.
Mhm.
Is that okay? Yeah, I'd like to see a visual of that and see how they, what they are producing for other areas.
We get our editors to do final approval on anything before it goes to print.
Okay, but y'all don't have any issue with selling ads to further market? Okay. The next one is add-on assets to our Meltwater subscription. Meltwater is our mention. It's an internet scrubber, so it goes out and it finds every mention of some keywords that we plugged in. So Nacogdoches, Piney Woods, Millard's Crossing are a couple of them, and then every morning I get a screenshot of all of those mentions, and then I can go back to that source. And it also allows us to, at different price points, we can identify different influencers in the digital marketing world. So we could find somebody that was specifically interested in historic sites along the El Camino Real. Maybe they're a travel writer and that's their history is their specialty. And then we can reach out to them and say, we'd like for you to come into our community, give you a fam tour, and we can host you at one of our hotels and trade for an article. Right now, we're not at that level of service that would allow us to reach out to those influencers. Our budget is really tight, but I've walked into a budget that was already set, and it's hard to see where any cushion was because there wasn't a great amount of specificity in, it's continuing education instead of, TACVB, the line item of the different conferences and how many people were estimated. So, and I know that in my interview, there was a great discussion at really looking at returns on investment. This would be, and things similar to this would be a way to really look at the earned media value of these mentions in social media and digital marketing, as well as build upon that and get in front of the narrative and start to drive it instead of reacting to it. So is that a direction that the board, budget allowing, would want to go? And this is just for an estimate, this would be like $7,200 for a year's subscription. So it would be a recurring yearly cost, about $7,200 to advance us to the next level that would allow us to get in front of that and drive the narrative instead of respond to it.
So these influencers, is there a number that they say will get you in front of X amount of?
Specifically for this group, so if we were really looking at building up our visual assets, so our pictures and our photography that were organic and beautifully done, it would put us in front of an Instagram person who has a following of 200,000 people or more and is interested in travel, craft beer. So that you can really hone it into a very specific area of what you're wanting. So if you're wanting visual assets or if you're wanting content and travel articles, it'll take those platforms that have the most, that are in line with that, what you're looking for, and then from there go and find the ones that are gonna get you in front of the most people.
Okay, so I see it acts as a filter almost.
Yeah, they're doing all the work for you for that $7,200. They're going out and doing the research.
Do you recommend it?
If we had the money, sure. I mean, it's, when you're looking at a staff of 4 people, there's only so much that you can do. It is possible to do it on your own, but it does take a lot of time, and then that's time that you're not tending to other things. But it is a lot of money as well. I mean, $7,200, that's a good chunk of our budget. But it does, you will get real tangible numbers in return. So you're not just spending the money and then it's gone. You can really start to see some return. And then if you don't, then the next year you don't re-up the subscription. So
We do something similar, marketing team does. Do you recall how many, the B&B stylings, for instance, how many impressions we got off of that?
She did it on various outlets, and so I would have to kind of add them up together, but we got a lot of Instagram, and she wrote a blog too. And so she's still pushing up the blog, and those numbers are still going up.
So we had an influencer, as they say, come out and she posted us on all her sites and did a blog, and there was a lot of traffic off of that. And I don't fully understand that whole world, but my understanding that is a growing arm of marketing, I guess, and it gets you in front of a certain demographic that traditional ads don't, I guess. So it's a targeted campaign. From that standpoint, I understand there's probably different levels of influencers as well, in different areas. So
You work with these people in that? Did you work?
Meltwater have, yeah, they're a class act, and it's not one that is dependent upon using APIs of different platforms, and that's currently another one that I worked with that was different, but I really enjoyed was Sprout Social, but they were dependent upon using sort of the back end of Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, and then those entities changed their access to that back end, and then you're stuck with a subscription service that's useless. But Meltwater, there's a lot of people that use them successfully. It is one of those things that, and it's pay to play, and the more you pay, the more you can play. But the return, I think, is there for you. And worst case scenario, try it for a year. And if you don't like it and it didn't work for you, it didn't work in your market, then that's just not a subscription that you renew, but at least you tried it.
And we used them for our fan tour when we had the writers, and that was very, very specific for our El Camino Real fan tour. And we're still getting articles, still getting blogs, still getting hits. It's amazing.
And a lot of the things that we've already, like we had 400,000 people see one of our blog posts that was written about Nacogdoches. And so it's a digital world out there.
We already paid them for something.
That's what they find it for you, and they send a link to you. But here's what ran about it that mentioned Nacogdoches and
So the stuff is all, so they're not, okay, I was misunderstanding it. I thought that we were paying them to get us in the sightlines of these bloggers, but they're really just, they're aggregating all of the things that have been said about us.
And then providing you with the contact information for the person that is driving them.
So that you can be like, oh, you like this, why don't you come back and do this?
Right.
Well, and then also pushing out, the invitation to come and, the things that we instigate. For example, if I wanted to push the blueberry, we would push it out to the influencers at like festivals. But we already have that part of that service. Now it's just the accountability on that back end.
Yeah, this is advancing our subscription to dive deeper down in there to get more information back, and then also a reporting feature. So I would be able to provide you with a bar graph with earned media value, so you could really see a tangible, this many eyes saw this specific picture, and you can even track how it converts to overnight stays. So it's like it did come cheaply at $7,200. And as the budget reveals itself, they're willing to work with us price-wise if it's something that we wanted to do, that we could add it into next fiscal year. But I'm always wary of that because I don't want to spend, I don't want to, eggs in a basket and count them and stuff like that. So just in the process of beginning to build up that budget, I was just wondering if that was a direction the board wanted to take these types of services.
Would you be able to send us like a description of what we're paying Meltwater for now, what those services are, and what services we might purchase for like an additional $7,200?
Sure, I could do that.
How many people are writing about Nacogdoches on blogs, things that aren't even aware of?
There's a lot of people. Yeah, there are a lot that's happening. In my experience in Conroe was sort of different. We were getting them, and it just happened to be at a time that some bad things were happening, and so you kind of one eye opened your inbox. You're like, oh god. You do need to know it because you need to be prepared for what you see. But Nacogdoches is really, for whatever reason, it's really hot right now to talk about. So. It's positive. And there's, typically you'll get something that when I can only imagine, I guess the character's name is Millard, and Millard's Crossing is one of our search words. And so, man, when that opened, I was like, all right, I get it.
And there's a street, Nacogdoches in San Antonio, so a lot of other stuff.
Oh, yeah.
See, so.
And Stephen F. Austin, there's a Stephen F. Austin hotel there too, so.
Scholarship Law Association.
So Visit Widget is a place, it's a company I've worked with in the past as well. It provides an app and it ties into your website, but you get a full functioning app that draws information from your calendar. I don't know if y'all have ever discussed or had an app here before, but I didn't know if apps in general were of interest or if that is a way to see. It's mixed opinion of apps. There's not too many people that are going to download an app if they're just in a destination for a weekend, and if they do, then they typically take it off their phone as soon as they do. So it's
how much does that kind of thing cost? When I go to a festival, I always download the app so it can help me get to the food, beverage, bathroom that I need to get to closest to the next, whatever event that I want to do. I always use that.
This one in particular isn't for a specific event necessarily, but what it does do, it helps you plan out your itinerary. So if you wanted to come to Nacogdoches and you wanted to make sure that you saw the football game and you had dinner and you went and heard some live music, and then you sang karaoke. You could find all those places and put a pin in it, and then it's going to build out an itinerary for you and give you directions. And it works off of Google Maps, lives on your website. It does help all the traffic that goes to the app shows up in your website analytics, so it helps drive actual traffic to your website as well. They're a lovely company. It's a startup company out of Austin. They're a small company themselves, but they're some smart young adults that really know what they're doing. That one, again, it's different price points, but you can get in the door for around $8,000 with basic functionality, and I think it goes up to about $13,000. And it's quick turnaround time. Inside of a month, you could be looking at an app if you have the money to throw at it. But I didn't know if we had discussed apps as.
That's something you could use on the website itself. So you click on the website, fill out the information that you're coming for these dates, and it populates.
It goes across platforms, so it's an app you download on your phone. You put it on your tablet as well, and you can also do it on a desktop. Any changes that you make on any one of those devices is reflective on that. So if you were at home and you were on your laptop and you built out this itinerary, when you pulled it up on your phone, all that work that you did on your laptop would be on your phone or your tablet.
So somebody could say, I want to go visit historic sites, and it would give you a list of them to pick from.
And then you could, based on the times that they're open and all
Right,
that.
and figure out.
I long for us to be that kind of destination town where you need an app to navigate visiting Nacogdoches.
We kind of already are, just with the days that were closed, and it just helps, in my opinion, when you've got some downtown shops that are closed on Monday because they've been open on the weekend, or you've got some historic sites that are or close at 4:30. When you've got things like that with some non-conventional start and stop times, it's helpful because while Mike can tell you without batting an eye what all those times are, that can be sort of inundating as a visitor to try and take all that in.
And then it throws you into Google Maps so you can find the winery way out in the country.
That's true.
Or your way back from the winery.
So is that another thing that you'd like for me to price out and email to you? Is that, but an app is something that you would be interested in?
Yeah, I think, and that speaks to a narrower group of people, but it's a growing segment as well.
Okay.
So,
And we can balance it with the budget item on our website expenses. I mean, would it work with that?
We're gonna have to pick between some of these and say
Yeah,
yes.
so then I would keep investing in the website and the internet.
It's independent of the website, so even if we, down the line, if we changed website, if we, didn't stay with Simple View, we could still keep that and they would, Visit Widget would be able to work with whomever did it. It would probably be a standalone cost, not directly I wouldn't count it in the website cost.
I'm wondering if there might be some partnership opportunities, because that's a problem, like for SFA parents coming in for orientation or parents weekend, and the trouble we have helping them, if it could pinpoint especially certain buildings, not every building on campus, but the primary buildings that we need them to know about. If we could pinpoint those, and like at the Stoneport Museum,
That's a
and,
great idea.
there might be
You
some.
need it the most for, probably.
Yeah. And then beyond the parents and the SFA students, when the groups come in, so many use the campus facilities for something.
The Coliseum and the stadium and
Grand Ballroom, Student Center.
Grand Ballroom.
Okay, I will research these things and put together some PDFs for you and send it out to you and look more into consideration for next fiscal year. Those that have extended offers of delayed billing, or I'll be sure and denote that somehow so that you know. Some of them would be nice to get started on sooner rather than later. That item number, I'm sorry.
Would that be your department at SFA that would discuss the partnering with?
How I would get the conversation started. I have to have approval from a couple of people, but it's where it would start.
Item number 4, there is a television production called Yolo, Texas. Typically, and it's not unheard of for production companies like Day Tripper and Texas Country Reporter, those again are typically pay for play. If you have a specifically really super great unique story, maybe they'll come in for free and do a segment on you. But this is another one of those. It's an upstart. Typically, it's $5,000 for a feature. They've offered us a special rate of $2,500 to come in this year and do Bluegrass and Blueberry Festival. And they play in 6 major markets. Our drive markets are one of those. They are typically on like the CW network, so they're on an actual network. They're looking at sending in the talent and then a full film crew. We would be out the $2,500 in addition to 3 rooms for 2 nights to house their crew. Happy to do it. It's a great price that we do have in our budget now. What I've discussed with them is they wouldn't be able to air the episode highlighting Bluegrass and Blueberry this year. They would still air it, but it would be after the festival, but they would air it then, and then we would get a re-airing next year in time to drive traffic. So it would be this year. We had such a great time in Nacogdoches at the Blueberry Festival, and then they did plan on, once I pointed out some of the other things of hitting the Fredonia Brewery and some other things that would be of interest to drive traffic until this time next year. But then they would also replay that, say, don't forget we had such a great time last year, book your rooms now. So it's a good opportunity. I did reach out to the chamber and to the Bluegrass Committee. Bluegrass Committee came back and said that they don't, that's, a contribution of any kind towards that would not be something that they would have access to. So it would be fully funded from us, but that's kind of what we're here is to market events.
What kind of guarantees does that make you regarding where this would air and on what networks? And is it just on cable, or is it cable plus DirecTV plus?
I have that information upstairs. It's on CW networks, so those are UHF and digital basic cable packages. So, and then it also has a YouTube presence, so they get a lot of viewership outside of those 6 major markets that they air in on the internet as well.
What are the 6 major markets?
San Antonio, they're in College Station, but San Antonio, Dallas, Houston were the ones that we had crossover in, and then they were in College Station, which is close enough to us. I can get that to you, but it's...
That's cool. Those are 4 great ones.
Yeah.
But you think it's just cable, so it wouldn't DirecTV subscribers?
No, it's on DirecTV. It's CW Network is.
Yeah, but just because it's on there, those are separate purchases.
Just local.
Yeah, you get one, you may or may not get everybody.
Two, I'm curious how we know who's watching it.
Is anybody familiar with this program?
Yep.
YOLO Texas.
Cable.
I'd never heard of it before, quite frankly, but that doesn't mean anything because I'm old. So,
So come on after Matlock.
unless it's on the Hallmark
CW
channel.
plays at my gym and that's the only time I see cable involved. It's well.
All right, well, I mean, we'll look at it, definitely, it's not a bad that's not a bad price point for television exposure, depending on where it is and who sees it.
Would they give us rights to the video that they create?
I will ask that.
They would give us rights to the video. It's almost worth $2,500
Right.
for that. And you can't.
We want to see something that they web page.
Yes.
I've seen their episodes. They're quality, yeah.
Okay.
Awesome.
Okay, and the last one we have hired our paid intern position, Savannah Holbrook. She started yesterday, was her first day. She is a hospitality major. She is set to graduate in May of 19, but she's also looking at possibly going to graduate school as well. This is her second internship in hospitality. She had a different experience and realized that she wanted to look into this part of travel and tourism and hospitality. She's got a really great personality. She's worked at the Fredonia for a while, seems to be a go-getter and a hard worker. So we're looking forward to having her join our team.
Awesome. Go right into your report.
Yeah,
You just give it.
pretty much. No real new news to report. Stephanie will be back. On Monday, she'll start working part-time from home. And so Shannon and I have worked out the arrangements of what that's going to look like and how we're going to check in and manage that situation. And then she will be back in the office full-time in June, middle of June. So that part is working out nicely. And with the addition of Savannah, we should be able to cover. Joanna's really stepped in a pinch and helped cover the front desk area as we've been down. A man down, so thank you to Joanna for doing that. We haven't gotten our Smith travel report yet. This meeting we'll probably get it either this afternoon or tomorrow. I did meet with Pam Curbo about our projected income, and her suggestion is that we keep it, looking at about $547,000, so no change from last year's collection. And the suggestion was, if we make more money, if more money comes in, we will certainly see that. But instead of budgeting, forecasting high and then building a budget around that, we could have some items specifically when we build out that budget. So if we wanted to look at getting a CVB vehicle, or if we wanted to maybe look at a national buy, we could put those in some contingency projects and contingent upon that money coming in, and then we would have an order, and then we would have to go back in front of council and say, this was contingent, we did have some more money, we'd like to spend it this way. But at least then we could sort of earmark some projects that if we had the money, we'd like to do it, but we wouldn't put us at a standstill of how to move forward.
I'd just like to jump in and say you did a marvelous job with your report to our city council.
Very kind.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, that's available for view, and I can also send you the PowerPoint deck if anybody would like to see that report. But our numbers are up, so that was good. And what I've mentioned around town, I forget who I've told, but our requests from international visitors are up significantly, and the reason that is important is, through the governor's office and visitor profiles that he compiles, that international visitors and heritage tourists, those that are coming for our history, stay longer and they spend significantly more. So it's interesting that we are seeing such an increase in requests from international visits. And just yesterday, we had a couple from Ireland in. So that's always the most fascinating thing of eavesdropping upstairs, is just hearing the stories of where these people come from and how they found what? How'd you get it?
Very badly.
Yeah, spread the word.
All right, hey, Joanna, what good news you have for us?
What's cooking? Well, you guys have a report that basically talks about, the leads we have in that are definite and tentative. As you can see on the top, it shows the lead name, but not the organization. I'm not really sure why we have the spring trip in there. It was a little bit earlier, but that was from the Franklin Baptist Church. And I had found a list of churches in our database, so I took it and sent out a bunch of information to them in hopes that they would come, and this was one of those people, Franklin Baptist Church. So they came and spent a couple nights, so we were really happy about that. What is not on here, the one that does not have a EEI value is the 2020 annual car show, and that's the North Texas Corvair Group. And they came in for a site visit last week. And so they are looking to come in 2020 during the months of April. They toured the Hotel Fredonia, and we toured some other locations, and they were very happy. And I have submitted a quote from the hotel to get room rates, and we're going to proceed from there. The summer riding retreat is a result of the FAM tour. We have a site visit for the Texas Association of Counties, that leadership development program. That is also part of the Texas County Judge and Commissioner. There were 3 of them that came for that site visit in October. That's met at this new possible meeting that John was referring to. They have 3 meeting planners with 75 meetings a year. So we've got 2. That's pretty good. If you look down, and so our actual EEI value for the top is around 408,000. For some reason, we didn't get that. It didn't add up right. Also, we have the Texas Agroforestry Small Farmers and Ranchers coming. They'll be here June 7th through June 9th. They're coming specifically so they can stick around for the Blueberry Bluegrass weekend. That's going to be hosted out of the Expo, and that has an economic impact of around 69,000. On our tentative side, again, based on the good news from John, I feel confident we're going to get that group. I'm in communication with Michelle, who's the lead on that. They have a lot of events planned outside of their time here, so we'll be looking for our partners in crime to help show them a really good time. The spring meeting is with our Texas Old Missions and Forts Restoration Association. That too is a result of a FAM tour, from our FAM tour. They'll be here in 2020. Let's see what else I have. We are in contact and working on the Texas Association to come in 19. And the Texas Triumph group is also a referral from the Austin Healy folks when they were in.
Motorcycles and cars.
Yeah, Texas Triumph.
Yes.
As As a matter of fact, I'm speaking to the local person, even though he's not the one in charge. But that was a referral from the Austin Healy, and they also were here for a site visit. They'll be coming. And that value is $301,000. We also have the Texas Boiler Symposium. I believe they were already in the hotel, or
Boiler?
yeah, broiler.
Those chickens.
Yeah, and they were here they were probably here in 2012. The Association of Air Force Nurses came for a site visit last weekend. They're going to be here in September. And then we also have a big walk that's gonna take a village, and that's the Texas Master Gardeners. And that's looking at 2021.
Yeah.
But Sherry's feel, and I think y'all agree, we are gonna take on all things that are possible so we can get an understanding of what we maybe aren't able to provide, so we can use that as information moving forward with not only the board but the city to see where some of those things are where people might be wanting other than space. You know,
Yes, there's definitely time we're gonna have to get creative and work with our partners in the community and anything we can do. I mean, the church next door to us has offered meeting space to us if we need it for things, and those are wonderful things.
CVH, insurance.
We are absolutely the same there. So we can get creative on some of these things, and I think what has been helpful, like for the car show coming in this weekend, they all talk with one another, and some of the agendas that have been created by yourself, and some of these things that we offer them, and as a community, not a place, not just a place to have to sleep and have a room, but as a community and destinations that they can go, is why we're starting to see
Yes.
more and more of these book windows.
Absolutely.
And it is a community effort, and that's the essence of why we sit here, is to help make those connections in our community. So,
Well, in the Texas tour that's coming this weekend, I have wanted involved in that. We really came up with some creative things. But John's place is offering the Southside Continental Bus area. I've been in communication with Elena, who works there in the yard stretch. I told her to come on out and meet some folks, and you never know what kind of business that's going to drum up. But they're really excited. So we made the front page on Thursday about the car show, and they are having a local coffee and donuts, which we're going to actually host on Friday morning between 8 and 11. We'd like everyone to come if they can, and that's simply we're going to have an opportunity to vote for our favorite. And so we'll have forums there. People can have a little something to eat. We'll have water, and they can meet the drivers, and that's going to happen on Friday. Yes. Meanwhile, the ladies are going to be, we've got 50 people making cupcakes. I think they may have to move that over to the hotel. But right now with Blue Horse, that activity just gives them time to learn how to make a pretty one, and they walk away with 2 cupcakes in a really nice box. We've got about 12 people signed up to visit over at Yornia, and they're going to walk away with something made. Then on Friday afternoon, they are one of their tours. Thursday, they are heading out west. They're going to end up at the Luton's Napa Valley for a little watermelon and wine activity for tasting. So they've got lots of things planned. They'll be over at the Tobacco Warehouse for an evening fun. Kim Chris is putting on a little show for them, and then they'll be back over at the hotel for their conference on Saturday night. So that's been a lot of fun. Also, what's coming up, I just wanted to brag about the city. Amy and her group have created this wonderful through May of 19 menu of all the good things that are happening, which is fantastic for me. I'm meeting with Scott Shaddix of from the university, and he and I are going to sit down to cover the 2018-19 University Series and Encore events, because we want to be able to have that included in our things to do, and we're just trying to get out as far as we can. That's exciting. We are also hosting, we're back on the bus for orientation Back in the day, the CVB used to be on a bus when the families toured around, and so we're back on it. They are breaking that down to one bus instead of two. There are 3 in June, there's 2 in July, but for each event on Friday night, we're hosting the parents' kind of happy hour. So at 8:30 on Friday, they're being dismissed. We're gonna walk over to the Nacogdoches Creek Ice House. We hope to have people in the community that are there. We're gonna ingratiate ourselves with the parents, and it's gonna be 8:30 to 10. So it's a Friday night, but it'll be fun. It's just a way to get them, I'm sure after a couple days of intensive SFA, everything, to have a beer. So we're in line to do that 5 times as well. So we're on the bus in the day and we're at the bar in the night. So that's, yeah, and then we also have just, I know Ron's not here, but the Art Alliance is bringing in Kinky Freeman, June 20th at Bonita Creek. He's got a signature tequila, so I believe they're gonna do some tastings of tequila. So there's gonna be a special meet and greet, signed posters, and that starts at 6 p.m. at Bonita Creek. And I'll get this to y'all as well.
Yeah, the tequila tasting is a separate ticket. June 20th.
It's a Wednesday night.
Lots of good stuff.
It's an awesome report, Joanne.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff. It's really
Thank you.
exciting coming down the pipeline.
Very good. Awesome. And Mike Bay's report is attached in here.
Over 1,100 people.
That's right, 1195, had 1,195 walk-in visitors in April. Things, momentum's being created, things keep moving in the correct direction. We look forward to that to continue. And the staff here, fantastic job of getting the community activated and getting tourism on the front page, literally. And it's the members of the board that are here to help.
And the county is.
And the county, yeah.
So that was a good day.
It is wonderful. It's great to see, and I look for the ties in the community to be strengthened by the members here of this board and to continue this process. So thank you all for what you do and for being here. With nothing else on the agenda, let's designate the meeting June 20th at 8:30 right here. And with that, we'll adjourn. Thank you.
I know.